Hey, I want to cover two international events that are going on right now as we speak and why it matters for the US. That's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to cover what's going on in Hong Kong and we're going to cover what's happening in the EU that's really positive. So we got a positive and then we got a negative, right? That's what's going on here. So on the negative side, we're going to talk about Hong Kong, right? You've probably seen the pictures of the protesters and you've seen maybe a little bit of tear gas. About 300 people were arrested. It's nowhere near what it was previously when the Hong Kong government tried to change some of the laws there to make it more amenable to the Chinese government in Beijing. So that's not happening this time. But you know, as far as like the massive protests, what is happening is the same thing. They're going to change a law that's going to make a fine for, get this, if you stand up during a soccer match and turn your back to the national anthem of China, not Hong Kong, but of China, right? As a matter of fact, there's some people in that stadium that actually have been flipping off the Chinese, which is interesting when the national anthem plays. Now, we in this country don't like that very much when, you know, and some of the pro football players have been severely criticized for taking a knee or raising their fists and so on in protest of the way that minorities have been treated in the United States. And I completely understand why they did it, and I completely understand why people get very angry about that during the national anthem. But in China, they're going to try to make it a crime. Now, actually, I should say not in China, in Hong Kong, right? That's the big thing. $6,500 fine and a 3 years potentially in prison. Now, that's a big deal for somebody who wants to turn their back to the national anthem during a soccer match. So keep that in mind. Now, why does this matter for what's going on here in the United States? Well, because the U.S. has come out and said, hey, you know, these changes that the Chinese are trying to make in Hong Kong, they put their, you know, Chinese favorable politicians in there. They pretty much control the parliament. You know what? It doesn't look like Hong Kong is separate anymore from China. So we're not going to consider them separate anymore. That has big ramifications for trade relations between Hong Kong and the United States. And remember, because the U.S. treated Hong Kong differently since 1992, actually, under an agreement, Hong Kong could avoid the tariffs that were put on China during this latest trade war. So that's going to go away. Now, what's interesting there is this could lead to further escalation of the Chinese trade war, the U.S.-China trade war, and of course, that could come at a very bad time for when we're really trying to get the economy going globally, and also we're trying to get the U.S. economy and the Chinese economy going as well. So this could lead to some major problems as far as economic growth goes. So keep that in mind. So this is a big potential negative, and that's why we're worried about it as far as the economy and the markets go. Now, on the other side of this coin, which is something really good, the EU decided to wake up, smell the coffee, and take advantage of a crisis. And I mean that in kind of a half-serious way. That's what Rahm Emanuel said, that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, I think, when he was chief of staff of President Obama. But the content or the thrust of that statement is true in the sense that for the EU, they have been a currency union in search of a political union. And I mean that this way. They have 27 countries that use the same currency. The problem is that they're not a fiscal union. In other words, each country has to issue their own bonds to pay for government spending. The problem with that is that you can only borrow from each country, and each country has a different makeup as far as whether it's creditworthy or not. That's what we've seen, obviously, between Greece and, say, Sweden. And so now what they're talking about is finally, yes, finally being able to issue a bond that it's supported by all 27 countries. Now, that is huge for the EU. It really takes them into a new realm. It takes away the possibility of countries wanting to leave the EU, so that's really good. And the second thing is it gives them tremendous firepower now to spend somewhere between $1.5 to $2 trillion. That's the plan. Now, it's a long way from getting done, but holy smokes, as things get worse in Europe and they don't recover, this is something that's so great to help all those people negatively impacted by COVID. And you think about Italy, you think about Spain, you think about all the people in countries that have lost lives, but also shut down their economies. And really, that's hurt so many of of course, the hospitality sectors in all of those countries. And remember, Rome is essentially, right, in Italy, a huge travel destination, not only for Italy, probably not so much for Italy, but for the rest of the world, and has been for centuries. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at those countries. Leisure and travel, that is so important for those countries. So this is something that's really good that I want you to just remember going forward. So 2 international events that have occurred, one bad, one good, and it's fantastic, the last one for the EU. Okay, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button below and you can get them as soon as they're released. If you want to learn more about what's going on Overcome, Adapt, and Thrive, you can click on the video below and you can learn more about that. And I'll see you in it, actually.